Okay, so let's talk a little bit about inflation and the accuracy of GDP. And as we have seen in the previous example, changes in price and quantity distort the measurement of purchasing power over time. And changes in nominal GDP can be due to changes in prices or changes in the quantities of output produced. But if both at the same time change, we can get weird results. And it will become difficult to say what the dollar actually buys. But when we look at changes in real GDP, then the changes are only attributable to changes in quantities, because real GDP is constructed using constant base year prices. So in other words, in order to really calculate inflation accurately, what we somehow need to do is we need to hold something constant. Because if both change at the same time, we can compare things over time. It's impossible to compare anything. So now there are two approaches to measuring inflation, and inflation is the change of some indicator of a price index. Okay, so in economics we have stocks and flows. And the way to think about it is, if you imagine you have a bathtub, and then in this bathtub you have some water in there. So then the water in the bathtub, that is your stock. Okay, but your bathtub also has a faucet, and so you have here like a faucet, and through the faucet we have water coming through, and that is the flow. Okay, so now the change in a stock variable, that is the flow, and a stock variable is, for example, the a price index. So let's think of some examples of stocks versus flow. So let's take some examples. Okay. So what is a stock? What is a flow in economics? Okay, so a stock variable is, for example, a price index, like a consumer price index. So let's say a price index. That is a stock variable. The flow, a change in the price index, that is what we call inflation or deflation. So if the price index goes up, that's inflation, or if it goes down, deflation. Another stock variable is, for example, the number of unemployed. Number of unemployed. That's a stock variable. But the flow would be layoffs and hirings. That would be the flow. Another common stock variable, especially in macroeconomics, is public debt. Public debt, that is a stock variable, and a flow would be things like a budget deficit, or surplus. So budget deficit is a flow, a surplus, those are all flows, but the stock variable is public debt. Another, for example, the exchange rate, like an exchange rate, if for example a dollar, let's just say, exchanges for €1, so that would be the exchange rate. So there's hypothetically assume that the exchange rate is that you have to spend $1 per euro. That would be a stock variable, but then if the exchange rate changes, for example, that you have to pay $1.20 for a euro, that would be appreciation or depreciation. Appreciation, depreciation. Okay, so this is the difference between a stock and a flow variable, and the bathtub is pretty much a good example. So now, in the next couple of videos, we will derive first the GDP deflator, which is a price index, and then we will derive the consumer price index, which is an alternative. And what I can already tell you at this point is that the difference between a GDP deflator and the consumer price index is that the GDP deflator will hold constant the price of a base year, just as we did before. So hold constant the price in base year, but let quantities vary. Right? And the CPI, the consumer price index, CPI, here we hold constant the quantities, but we let the prices vary. So if we do both at the same time, if we let quantities vary and prices vary, it becomes impossible to compare anything over time. But what we can do is if we hold one of the two constant, we get a better grip of what's happening in real terms to, in this case, the price level. But we will work through an example in the next couple of videos.